It's Thursday, January 30th, 2025. Trump signs the Laken Riley Act. RFK Jr. spars with various factions of the pharmaceutical industry, also known as U.S. senators. And are the refs rigging Chiefs games this time? I asked you. Next on the AM Update.
He said he would secure our borders and that he would never forget about Laken.
Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. 2% of American kids had chronic disease. Today is 66%. This is not just a economic issue. It is a spiritual issue, and it is a moral issue.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's not your position, Jake, that we should supply America's food with exploitative illegal alien labor.
If you're a reasonable person, you should have Trump derangement syndrome.
S25, this is CRJ inside. S25, F1 is CRJ.
S5 has an aircraft inside President's separation.
Those are the harrowing moments, the harrowing seconds, really, before a disaster in Washington, D.C. last night as American Airlines Flight 5342 collided in midair with a Sikorsky H-60 or Black Hawk helicopter while on approach to runway 33 at Reagan Washington National Airport around 9 p.m. local time. The U.S. Army confirmed 3 soldiers were on board that Black Hawk helicopter. 64 people were on board the commercial American Airlines flight. The Army also confirmed no senior officials were on board that Black Hawk helicopter flight. NBC News Washington reported at least 4 survivors had been removed from the Potomac River. This is an ongoing story, though. This is the closest we have come to the largest aviation disaster since 9/11. Please keep all involved in your prayers. Again, it's even a minor miracle. It's a major miracle that anybody survived that flight at all. President Donald Trump greenlit the Laken Riley Act on Wednesday. The landmark legislation became the first bill to be signed into law in the second Trump administration. The bill was named after the 22-year-old nursing student who was senselessly murdered by an illegal alien in February of 2024 while she was jogging on the University of Georgia campus. In honor of Riley, the law requires the detention of illegal aliens who are charged with theft-related and violent crimes as a preventative measure. Laken Riley's mother spoke to an audience before the signing ceremony and had these riveting words.
We also want to thank President Trump for the promises he made to us. He said he would secure our borders and that he would never forget about Laken. And he hasn't. He's a man of his word. We trust that he will fight for the American people. Most importantly, I want to thank our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because without his sacrifices, Laken's story would have ended on that horrific day that she was taken from us. But because of him, we can continue living knowing that we will see Laken again.
In the background, as Laken Riley's mother addresses the crowd gathered at the White House for that signing ceremony, you can see Donald Trump standing there, and he is reading his body language, visibly moved by the words from Laken Riley's mother. This will be the first, as I said, landmark legislation that Donald Trump has signed in his second term, and it is fitting. More on immigration in a few moments. But first, of course, one of the most important confirmation hearings of the Trump administration went down yesterday. That would be of RFK Jr. He's the nominee for Secretary of Health and Human Services, and boy, howdy, it was a very uncomfortable, very predictably so, an uncomfortable hearing, but RFK Jr. didn't look shook at all. Here he is getting screamed at in histrionics by Senator Pocahontas of Massachusetts. I'm sorry, Senator Pocahontas of the great state of Pfizer.
You financially down the line.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You and I, you have said
you're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Look, no one should be fooled here. As Secretary of HHS, Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturing across our country. And for all of his talk about follow the science and his promise that he won't interfere with those of us who want to vaccinate his kids, the bottom line is the same. Kennedy can kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it. Kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in.
Senator, I support vaccines.
That is Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. hectoring RFK Jr., Trump's nominee for HHS, over whether or not he'll actually sue pharmaceutical companies. Oh, no, not the poor pharmaceutical companies. Please don't sue them. Who knows if they would be able to survive that? As if that wasn't good enough, here is Senator Bernie Sanders. I still have no idea what the heck the context of this clip is, but Bernie Sanders has a couple of placards printed off for show and tell, ostensibly. On those placards are pictures of onesies, like what babies and small, infants, maybe small toddlers would wear, with some anti-vaccine slogan. Listen to this exchange.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
I'm supportive of vaccines.
Are you supportive?
Are you kidding? That's an actual word uttered into the record of the United States Senate. Are you supportive of these onesies?
Are you supportive of these onesies?
I'm supportive of vaccines.
Are you supportive of this clothing, which is militantly anti-vaccine?
I am supportive of vaccines. I will. I want good science, and I want to protect.
But you will not tell. Are you?
What can you say? Are you supportive of these onesies? I cannot get over the fact that was actually a sentence uttered in a confirmation hearing by a United States Senator. RFK Jr. went into more details about what really drives him to accomplish what he's seeking to accomplish, which is make America healthy again.
I had 11 brothers and sisters. I had dozens of first cousins. I was raised in a time where we did not have a chronic disease epidemic. When my uncle was president, 2% of American kids had chronic disease. Today, 66% have chronic disease. We spend zero on chronic disease during the Kennedy administration. Today, we spend $4.3 trillion a year. With 77% of our kids cannot qualify for military service. When I was a kid, the typical pediatrician would see one case of diabetes in his or her lifetime, 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through her office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. And the most recent data from NIH shows 38% of teens are diabetic or pre-diabetic. Autism rates have gone from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 1,500, depending on what studies you look at. In my generation today, 70-year-old men, 1 in 34 in my kids' generation. We've seen this explosion of autoimmune disease, of allergic diseases. This is not just an economic issue. It's not just a national security issue. It is a spiritual issue, and it is a moral issue. We cannot live up to our role as an exemplary nation, as a moral authority around the world, and we're writing off an entire generation of kids.
That's right on the money. When RFK Jr. says there that healthcare, that the health of this nation, it's not just an economic or national security issue, it's a spiritual, he dropped that exact word there, it's a spiritual and a moral issue. He is 100% right on the money. For generations now, and this stems from academia, we have divorced the notion that we are both spiritual and physical beings. We have tried to the best of our ability to secularize science. You're never going to be able to fully secularize science, or anything for that matter. But fundamentally, and this goes into healthcare as well, maybe especially in healthcare, we have gotten rid of the notion that we are fearfully and wonderfully made by God. We are just randomly evolved primates. We are a problem looking for a solution. We're a problem walking around looking for a solution. Our bodies are inherently bad. It's a problem looking for a solution. And if there's a solution, then solutions can be perfected. That's a very utopian notion. This is the exact reason during COVID, we saw scientists, public health experts, proclaim with a straight face that you could stop a respiratory virus. That's where this notion came from, that our bodies are actually just ticking time bombs. Our bodies are not fearfully and wonderfully made. Yes, we are susceptible to disease, but we are also capable and able to fight it off. He's 100% on the money there. Fundamentally, And I hope he understands this. I don't know what the depth of his understanding is of this issue, but it's clear that he gets that it is a moral and spiritual issue to some degree. If we don't get that understanding back into the annals of our great health institutions, this problem is never going away. I hope and pray RFK Jr. flies through this nomination and confirming process and gets put in charge of HHS. After the confirmation hearing, a couple of senators reacted, pro and con. Here's Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson.
I think he's doing well. I mean, aren't you guys disappointed by the hostility? One thing I've learned in working with all these doctors, whether it was talking about our response to COVID and the Make America Healthy movement, it's completely nonpartisan. I mean, most of the doctors that testified in my events were actually from the other side of the aisle. It didn't make any difference because we're all focusing on trying to accomplish what the American people want. I mean,
Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Here's Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, who hates RFK Jr.'s guts.
As I said during my opportunity to question Mr. Kennedy, there are many things about the diagnosis of the challenges that we face in healthcare that I agree with, in the sense that we're the richest country in the world and our health outcomes are nowhere near what they should be. And he said that's a moral question. And I actually believe it is a moral question, which is why we need somebody in this job who is not peddling the kind of half-truths that Mr. Kennedy has made a career out of.
And Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, who has received campaign contributions from Gilead Sciences, Celgene, AbbVie, Genentech, Sanofi, Bayer, Biogen, Merck, Pfizer, and that's Biotechnology Innovation Organization. Just FYI, for totally random, non-parenthetical information. Well, another Democrat senator, or former Democrat senator, is going to prison. A case of mistaken identity in Las Vegas, and Jimmy Kimmel says, you're a really bad person if you don't have Trump derangement syndrome. That's coming up next.
ICE and Border Patrol don't use trucks from 1985.
The federal government may not have a truck like Billy Settlemeyer's, and there's a good reason why.
I'm an ice cream man, that's it.
You heard that right. Settlemeyer's drives an ice cream truck that looks like a police vehicle. It's complete with a fake badge on the side. But look closely. In the Las Vegas Ice Cream Patrol may be home to more chocolate bars than metal ones.
So I wanted to build something creative for my community. Nice and clean and approachable, safe for kids. That's it.
But some on social media didn't take a minute to think before posting a video of the truck and starting a rumor that, for Settlemeyer's, wasn't too sweet.
Basically, be on the lookout. Las Vegas is using ice cream trucks as cover to catch illegal aliens.
That is a portion of a story from KLAS TV in Las Vegas about an ice cream man who drives around a truck that's it's not disguised at all. It's pretty obvious it's an ice cream truck, but the motif, the theme that this ice cream truck man uses for his ice cream truck makes it look like it's, Immigration and Customs Enforcement or Border Patrol. And so somebody started posting on social media, posted a picture of that truck and said, hey, Las Vegas Immigration and Customs Enforcement are starting to disguise as ice cream trucks, not the other way around. What an interesting, funny story. How dumb do you have to be on social media? How dumb do you have to be to confuse a literal ice cream truck for Immigration and Customs Enforcement? Well, you probably have to be at least as dumb as former Senator Bob Menendez, who was sentenced yesterday to 11 years in prison for trading bribes for political favors. Federal prosecutors levied allegations of bribery, extortion, and acting as a foreign agent against Menendez, then chair of the powerful Senate Foreign Relations Committee in fall of 2023. Last summer, he became the first public official ever convicted of acting as a foreign agent while in office. A New York York jury found the senator and his wife, Nadine, accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash, gold bars, and luxury cars from 3 New Jersey businessmen. In exchange, Menendez protected the halal meat certification monopoly of one of the businessmen, Wael Hanna, in exchange for lucrative kickbacks, and intervened in separate criminal cases involving the other 2 men, Jose Uribe and Fred Dibes. Before the judge handed down his sentence on Wednesday, Menendez, the 71-year-old, tearfully asked for leniency, citing his decades of public service. Check this out. Late-night host Jimmy Kimmel was interviewed by Joe Scarborough on MSNBC and dropped this little nugget. Listen to this. It's a very short clip, but it says a book's worth of information.
I laugh when people say, oh, you've got Trump derangement syndrome. I think if you're a reasonable person, you should have Trump derangement syndrome. And by the way, I think he has derangement syndrome about us.
Jimmy Kimmel saying that if you are a reasonable person, you will have Trump derangement syndrome. So why am I making such a big deal out of this? Because I think in 12 seconds, you just heard the absolute distilled form of what was absolutely shattered back in November with the election of Donald Trump. Not only the election in the Electoral College, but the popular vote as well. What was shattered then and continues to be shattered to this day. You heard a version of this earlier this week with Vice President J.D. Vance telling CBS News' Margaret Brennan, Margaret, I really don't care. I don't want violent illegal aliens sharing a neighborhood with my children. It's a version of the same thing here. For all too long, really beginning with the election of Barack Obama, I would wager, the left in the United States, in the social media age, has had this very chilling effect on basically every area of our lives. That if you didn't walk in lockstep, if you didn't talk in lockstep with the approved narrative of the regime, you were a bad person. Now, that's been totally blown up by the Trump administration now in the election of Trump back a few months ago. See, that 12-second clip illustrates that Jimmy Kimmel doesn't realize this. Or maybe he does, and he doesn't know what to do. Because for all of this time, Jimmy Kimmel has been one of the good people. He's swallowed every narrative from the regime, hook, line, and sinker. He's a good person after all. The instinct that I'm talking about you, the instinct that you have, or maybe the temptation that you have at family get-togethers to not rock the boat for fear of upsetting Aunt Purple Hair or cousin fill-in-the-blank Lefty. That is the, I don't want to be seen as a bad person phenomenon that I'm talking about here. Jimmy Kimmel just said, if you do not have Trump derangement syndrome, you're not a good person. Back in November, the American people said, I don't care. I'm voting for him anyway. It's one of the most positive developments, I think, of the last 10, 15 years in American social, not just political, but American social life, is that we don't care what these supposed good people think about us anymore. And now back to immigration. Donald Trump announced yesterday that he's going to be reopening a base at Guantanamo Bay for 30,000 violent illegal aliens.
Today, I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them.
That is undeniably good news in my estimation. I mean, get them out of this country, get them off of this continent. I mean, technically, I don't know. If Cuba is part of this continent, who cares? But they're not on the mainline United States anymore. And now here's this. Stephen Miller is the White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. He joined CNN and Jake Tapper the other day to discuss immigration policy and other various tangential items. You've often heard the line from Democrat lawmakers, well, we can't enforce our immigration laws. Who's going to pick our cotton? That's some variation or derivation of that line. Well, here Stephen Miller gives a very instructive breakdown on how you can respond to somebody who might argue the same thing with you.
Because one of the reasons that President Trump got elected, according to President Trump in an interview, I think it was with Kristen Welker of NBC, was because of grocery prices. Not the only reason, but a reason: high prices, inflation, especially at the grocery. The Department of Agriculture says that between 2020 and 2022, 42% of crop workers were undocumented immigrants. And in many cases, as you know, these migrants do jobs many Americans do not want to do. So how does President Trump make sure that the effort to deport people who are not in this country legally doesn't end up hurting Americans who want safe borders, absolutely, but also don't want to see even more higher prices in groceries?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's not your position, Jake, you're just asking the question, that we should supply America's food with exploitative illegal alien labor. I obviously don't think that's what you're implying. Only 1% of alien workers in the entire country work in agriculture. The top destination for illegal aliens are large cities like New York, like Los Angeles, and small industrial towns, of course, all across the heartland, as we've seen with the Biden flights. Mm-hmm. None of those illegal aliens are doing farm work. Those 30,000 illegal aliens that Joe Biden dumped into Springfield.
I'm talking about the ones that are.
But I'm explaining this. It's important to understand.
No, you're kind of changing the subject. I mean, I'm talking about the ones.
I will give me 30 minutes. I'll go as deep as you want on this. I'm explaining to you and your audience.
I don't have I'm talking about the ones that work in the agriculture industry.
I'm
you
explaining
can come back
to you
and we
your
can talk
audience.
about the ones in the cities. I swear.
I'll do the whole answer. The illegal aliens that Joe Biden brought into our country are not full stop doing farm work. They are not. The illegal aliens he brought in from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Nicaragua, they are not doing farm work. They are in our cities collecting welfare. As for the farmers, there is a guest worker program that President Trump supports. Over time as well, we will transition into automation, so we'll never have to have this conversation ever again. But there's no universe in which this nation is going to allow the previous president to flood our nation with millions and millions of illegal aliens who just get to stay here. And we are especially not going to allow a subset of those illegal aliens to rape and murder our citizens. So we are going to unapologetically enforce our immigration laws. And as I'm sure you will celebrate, we are going to unleash the power and might of the U.S. government to eradicate the presence of transnational threats on our soil.
And boom, that's how it's done. White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy Stephen Miller. That's how you disabuse the lying mainstream media about the notion, well, we can't enforce immigration laws because nobody's going to pick the cotton for us. Stephen Miller there with an absolute masterclass. Coming up next, how many listeners or followers, probably more accurate, of Real AM Update on X eat paint chips? That's next. And finally, Air Analysis. I asked you, do you think the NFL is rigging games, courtesy or via the referees? Do you think they're rigging games in favor of my Kansas City Chiefs? Here are the options I gave you. Option 1, no, I'm not a dummy. Option 2, yes, I do think they're rigging games. I also eat paint chips. 3, no, I don't think they're rigging games, but the Chiefs are lucky. And 4 other comment below. Here are some of your reactions. And the winner of this poll that I polled of my audience at Real AM Update, which you should go follow. You can follow me on Instagram as well, at Real AM Update. Here's who won. At 32.5%. Yes, I eat paint chips. Yes, I believe the Kansas City Chiefs are the beneficiary of refs rigging games. And I eat paint chips, 32.5%. Next up, no, I don't believe the refs rig games for Kansas City, but the Chiefs are lucky, 26.5%. Next up after that is other comment below. We'll get to that in a little bit at 21%. And the lowest vote getter, which is what I voted for, is no, I'm not a dummy. The refs are not rigging games for the Kansas City Chiefs. That got 20% of the vote. Anti-Left says, I got bigger fish to fry than worrying about this woke league. To which I responded, that's awesome. Why did you reply? Data Masked says, would it surprise you if they did, or do you think Sports Day are still full of pure meritocracy. I don't watch sports, so I don't know either way. Besides, crayons are the thing to eat. That's good data math. Do I think they're a pure meritocracy across the board? No, but I don't think really anything is a pure meritocracy across the board. Even at the United States peak and best, I don't think anything's a pure meritocracy, like a pure uppercase M meritocracy, is just as utopian as the left's version of utopia, if we're going to be honest about it. But I do think it's the last vestige of, an idealistic meritocracy. Kyle H. says, if it was rigged, why KC instead of Buffalo? Buffalo is the better story, correct? Almost 60 years without a title and 4 Super Bowl losses in a row. That's a good point. And on 1234 says, who cares? America is winning. If people can't get behind that, I hope they get deported. Amen. Trav, with a Josh Allen jersey in his profile picture, says the Chiefs are gay. Dalton Bell says, Vegas has figured out how to control the game with the refs, just like the NBA referee ordeal years ago. Cool. What's your backup? What's your source for that? Don't mean to be the source guy, but that's just kind of a pretty bold assertion there. I think that maybe regulators would like to know about that, Dalton. Cheryl Anderson says they do get a lot of bogus calls that go their way. Really? Do they? A lot of bogus calls? Like bogus calls? Really? Are you sure about that? Keith H. says, I'm overwrought with indifference and wonder if there's a way both teams can lose. I know a lot of people are sick of the Chiefs. I understand that. And a lot of people just don't like Philadelphia. So, Keith, you're not alone there. Puglius says, refs are bad at making calls, always have been. The team with the spotlight shows mistakes everywhere. This isn't a sports bro take. This is a human nature take. Yeah, I think I get what you're saying there. This is just, refs are just, they're human beings. They're not perfect. They're not automatons. Gerald Earl says, Bills made mistakes that hurt them. Should have challenged a third down spot that was an obvious first down. Also, Cook didn't get near enough touches. You're right about that. But they couldn't stop. The Chiefs couldn't stop James. Is it James Cook? So why did they just go away from him? I know that you were getting down, so you needed to pass the ball a little bit more. But I don't know why you just went away from him so often. But most controversial calls all went the Chiefs' way, as they always seem to do. Kansas City definitely gets help, as do all the great teams. I think as best as the furthest I'm willing to go, as trying to put on an objective hat as possible with my Chiefs, is that they do seem to have a little bit wider of a strike zone, if you will. They get some of the calls that some of the great teams just seem to get. But to say that all the controversial calls went all the Chiefs, that's not really accurate. There's no angle of that controversial fourth down stop that definitively shows. There's just not. There's just not an angle that definitively shows. Did the Chiefs get a lucky ruling call on the field? Yeah. But in the replay, it's not at all obvious. Jay Breezy says, yes, the league is rigged, but I don't eat paint chips. Really, though, you see some of these calls and it starts looking really suspect. I don't know about that. Okay, we're going to have to wrap up here. I got a lot of feedback to this one. Kurt North says, dude, let it go. John Showalter says, what's wrong with eating paint chips? Arrogant Grievances says they get the benefit of the doubt. Let's see. What's one more? Suzanne D. I stopped watching when the kneeling started. Huge monkey off my back. There's really not much kneeling anymore. They have the virtue signaling, painting at the end or at the back of the end zone. End racism. Oh, man. Racism was really bad until the NFL started painting end racism on the helmets in the back of the end zone. I want to leave you with one more thing. One more thing. And then we're done talking football for a while. I want to share this stat with you. Kansas City was 17th in the league in percentage of scoring drives this season that were aided by a penalty for a first down that ended in a touchdown or ended in a score of some sort. They were 17th in the league on scoring drives that were aided by a first down via penalty. The number one team that was aided by first downs via penalty that resulted in scoring drives, that would be the Buffalo Bills. So, there's that. Also, I hope it goes without saying, all of my commentary about sports, unless I say something different and it's about something that's not really about sports, all of my commentary about sports, especially the Chiefs conversations this week, it's all done in good fun and jest because football is absolutely trivial. So I like that we can flame each other and troll each other. It's good to have fun sometimes and talk about fun, trivial things. Good conversation today. We'll be back at it again tomorrow with Ask or Tell Me Anything. Hope you have a wonderful Thursday. See you then. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.
Tonight we have to pee, so we have to spit up.
Yeah, you threw up. Yep, and so what happened? What happened after that?
My big boy bed.
Yeah, in your big boy bed. And so who came into your room?
Daddy.
Yeah, and it was time to take a
shower.
Yeah.
And read some more Bible.
Yeah, we read some more Bible. And we just sat there in the rocking chair, but we didn't rock. And eventually it was all done spitting up. All done throwing up. So it was time to sleep in your bed. And Daddy slept on the floor. Yeah. And now today you're feeling all
better.
Good.